Welcome everybody to this week and what a week it's been. So, the big day is finally here. It is Christmas. So, that's kind of good. It's kind of nice to have all the hustle and the bustle done for the holidays. So, we got a show in store for you here today. I've got some news. I got some holiday themed news. Um, Chat GPT will make an appearance in just a moment. And of course, we've got you guys, those of you who are here. Now, I don't expect to see a ton of folks here today because hopefully you're spending some time with your family and you're watching this on the replay. But for those of you who are in the house, well, an extra helping heaping of thank you for showing up on Christmas Day. Holy, oh no, it's holy banana bread today. So, anyway, it's fantastic to see you. We already have a couple people. We got Scott from the Create Save Invest show in bright and early. Gotta love it. Good to see you, Scott. I'm glad to see that you're here on Christmas. And we got the friggin' Oracle from the friggin' Oracle show, who's also in the house. It's good to see you, Ken. So, we're going to start the show with something a little bit different. I was thinking I wanted to do a poem. So I went to Chat GPT and I said, Chat GPT, write me a poem about Canadian stocks and Christmas. And it came back. What it came back with was actually pretty darn good. But I had to tinker with it a little bit. So the poem I'm about to read you guys, it's about 70% of the AI and maybe 25% me getting in there too. So here we go. This should be fun. I'm expecting to completely butcher all of the words and mess up the rhyming, but we'll give it a try. So here we go. It was Christmas and all through the land, investors were stirring with stock prices in hand. They checked their portfolio with stock prices in jeer in hopes to see their investments grow in the new year. They look at their holdings of Canadian stocks galore, like the Royal Bank, a big sixer that maybe is set to soar, or Canadian Tire, the retail giant that's here to stay. They'll be around for many Christmases, come what may. There was CNR, a backbone with many green days and trains, a company that is certainly on track to make some gains. And TELUS, here's where they mess up. And TELUS, the telecommunication giant that is on the rise, connecting people for the holidays with unveiled surprise. That actually should have said unrivaled surprise. But the star of the show, the one that shone bright, was Canoe as voted by us in a race that was tight. This income trust with dividends and scope shall lead us into 2023 and fill us with hope. So as Christmas passes and the year comes to a close, remember these Canadian stocks and the joy they've imposed. They'll be here for you through thick and thin, bringing cheer to your portfolio and to the world within. Yay, there we go. Thank you, Chat GPT. Anyway, that was just a funky little thing that we had going on there. So we got a few more people popping in. We got Tim Smith. It's my first live stream. He's in BC. Awesome, Tim. It's so fantastic to see you here. I hope you've managed to get yourself all shoveled out. I know they got a lot of snow in BC. And if the banana bread is holy, someone stole the chocolate chips. That could be, absolutely. And Merry Christmas, Nicole. Fantastic to see you. And Tim says, thanks, Candace. I'm heavy into HDIF, which contains most of the major Canadian stocks, but you have been great in helping me find some hidden gems at the low cap and have some great dividend yields. Oh, absolutely. I'm glad that I've been helpful for you, Tim. We have Vineet in here. Hey, everybody. And what did I miss about HDIF? Well, excuse me. You didn't miss too much. You just missed just mentioning that it was a good stock. So definitely a good stock. HDIF. And let's go back to the short thing that I did, the 12 stocks that you guys picked. There was an error. And when I was doing number 12 was HDIF. And I went and said HDIV when I was filming it and didn't catch it. One commenter did catch it though. So I'm like, Number 12 is HDIF. And I did post the full 12 over on the Facebook group as well, but I apologize for that. It's like I couldn't believe it when I was like, oh dear, banana bread, how did I do that? So that happens from time to time. And Jill says hi. Hello, Jill. How are you? And we got Scott saying reindeer all melted now. Well, that's good. That's good. I know there was a lot of people. Now, hopefully none of you guys were affected, but a lot of people couldn't get home on them, for the holidays because of all of the flight cancellations and this massive storm. Just devastating. Absolutely. So that is not a good thing. Excuse me. Tim says, hi, Candace. How often do you scan the TSXV or the CSE looking for hidden gems yourself? Well, because I am making videos all the time, I'm pretty much in there all the time, Tim. I use a lot of different scanners too. So, for example, when I did that one about safe dividends, so what I did is I did a scanner and I set the parameters in a stock scanner, or a screener, sorry. So I basically said, okay, well, I'm looking for dividends above 7%, and I'm looking for debt very, very low. So I was looking at the debt to equity ratio, and I wanted something at least lower than 50. Meaning that they have twice as much equity as they have in debt, which is a really good situation for a company to be in. So I put those criteria in, and I could have added more criteria. And then it brought me up all of the stocks that fit that criteria. So I could sort of whittle down through them. That's one of the way I find my stocks. I use screeners. I love screeners. This is really cool. I really should do a video on how to use screeners and show people who are unfamiliar with them, because they are a fantastic way to find new stocks that you may be interested in. And Jill says, nice poem. Most of the credit goes to GPT. Then I did a little, and there was at least one line that didn't sound right, and Jill actually helped with that line. So a little bit of credit. So I would say 75% GPT, 20% me, and 5% Jill. I think that would be a fair breakdown on that poem. So, but I read it and butchered it. So that's, couple little pieces. So that's kind of cool. All right. So first piece of news that we have is actually holiday movies. So as you guys know, there are a ton of holiday movies, and holiday movies are a massive business. So this year alone for North America, there were 169 brand new holiday movies. Now, one of the things you have to realize is that with each one of these movies, when they're being made, whichever community they decide to make that movie in, it pumps between $1.2 and $1.5 million into the local community. Now, here's why this is kind of important to us as Canadians. Most of these movies are made in Canada, which is fantastic for a whole bunch of different reasons. One are the tax breaks. We have a lot of tax breaks and tax incentives, which is one of the reasons why a lot of Hollywood takes place in Vancouver. Vancouver, I think, subs for almost every single city out there, which is kind of cool. But the other thing is we also have a colder climate. So it's sometimes easier to get snow. A lot of times with these movies, to make snow, they're actually going to local rinks and using some of the ice and the snow that's pulled off of the rinks just to sort of set up their set to get their shot. Sometimes they'll even go back and they'll use like cotton balls too, but that's another story. Now, Hallmark actually leads the way in holiday movies, because Hallmark, they're all about the holiday movie when you get into this time. So they made, 40. They made 40 this year. So Hallmark made 40 brand new movies, and Hallmark, their movies take about $2 million to make. And they also, of course, take roughly, I think it's 3 weeks to make one of these movies. Now, with the tax incentives that I was talking about, you can get up to 60% paid for your movie. That is insane when you're talking about a $2 million movie. But to get the full amount, you need to the movie has to be declared Canadian content by CanCom. So the CRTC is involved in that. So how do they do that? Well, one, most of the extras in these movies are Canadian. A lot of times they'll go with a Canadian producer, a Canadian director. They'll put as much Canadians in it as they can so that they can hit the criteria, because everything you put into it that's Canadian gives you another point to determine if it's Canadian content or not. So as long as they hit the right level of Canadians, they can get that full Canadian content stamp of approval from the CRTC, well, from CanCom for the CRTC, and then they get their full funding, which is fantastic. It gives them a whole lot of room to make. Now, here are some of the big Canadian or big movies that have been made in Canada. So A Christmas Story, that's a classic. That one was made in Canada. Elf was made in Canada. The Santa Claus, that was also made in Canada. So Canada has a lot of these movies in it, which is fantastic. All right, and now, so Vineet says, I found LIF through an ETF TD screener, and it was amazing. I wish I could go back and figure out what attributes I chose to get LIF. Yeah, absolutely. So that's your Labrador Iron Ore Royalty Company. So that's a fantastic company. We just did a video on them recently. Jill says, they film quite a few of them near here, especially in like Elmont and Russell. Yeah, absolutely. Most of the Christmas movies take place, of course, in small towns. Canada has a lot of small towns that can stand in for pretty much anywhere, which is fantastic, I think. And Tim says, BC has better actor crew unions, easier for film production to work with less demands. BC has a variety of locations, same time zone as Los Angeles. I'm in Mission, BC. They do Hallmark movies here. Exactly. It's one of the things. I used to live in BC. I used to live in Vancouver. And the building I worked in was downtown, right in the middle of where they film almost everything. So it was funny. I would come out of the building I worked in, and the building next to me was the building they used as the Daily Planet in Smallville. It was also used as the Baxter Building in one of the older Fox Fantastic Four movies. So it was always kind of fun. Like sometimes I would come out and I'd see a LexCorp truck just sitting there, or a Daily Planet newspaper box sitting there. And it was just like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. But what was really, really cool is they had an episode in Smallville, like a season finale, where they had Zod and a whole bunch of other stuff. But they had like part of Metropolis was destroyed. And when they zoomed out, I could see my building, and there was a giant hole where I worked with smoke coming out of it. I was like, that's awesome. So I, of course, screenshotted that, and that became my my background for a while, because I thought that was just so funny. How many people get to see their place destroyed like that? But yeah, so the holiday movies, absolutely huge business. Canada is fantastic that way. And it is mostly BC. BC gets, I would say, did I put this down? Yeah, 75% of the Hallmark movies are filmed in BC. So there you go, Tim. 75% of them are there. So that's fantastic. The only downside to living in Vancouver with all of the filming is sometimes when you're watching something and then you see Vancouver scenery and you know exactly where it is, it can pull you out of the movie or the show. So that does happen from time to time. But, you know, it's still pretty good. Let's see. Tim says they were doing that Archie show Riverdale here in Mission at our Rocco's Diner, but it was getting too much attention from locals and harder to film. So they rebuilt the diner in a studio in Burnaby. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. I mean, some of the other, shows, like classic shows like The X-Files, most of them were filmed in Vancouver. I think the final seasons they did move back to Los Angeles, but most of it was all around BC. And it's kind of funny too. Sometimes you'll hear where the setting of the show is, but yet in the background you'll catch some mountains that are obviously, obviously part of the Cascades, and you're like, or coast, some of the coastal mountains, and you're just like, yeah, no, that location where the show's supposed to take place wouldn't have mountains quite that big. So that was always kind of fun. Okay, up next, a little bit about the Canadian economy. So we'll have a little bit of real news. So we got some numbers out for October. So the Canadian economy grew 0.1% in October. Now, what is interesting about that is that don't get your hopes up too high, because one of the things about all of the rate hikes is that it takes time for these to actually filter through the system. So a lot of the rate hikes like we've seen in like December and even the rate hikes in November, we're not really going to get a full feel of how bad they've made things until early 2023. So that's going to be really interesting. Oh, and Tim has another more. This is about the X-Files. X-Files is actually the show most responsible for growing the film TV industry in BC. Things took off here because of that show. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the X-Files was, I mean, that was huge. And there's just so much in BC to offer America. So, Vancouver is a great city. You can pretty much find almost anything in Vancouver where you can simulate it to make it look like almost any other city in the world if you wanted to. Although it's interesting, there are very unique looking buildings in Vancouver that do show up all the time. And you're like, oh, yeah, I know where that is. So, like I said, that is kind of funny. All right, so that was a little bit on the Canadian economy. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Canadian economy in a few moments or so. Back to the holidays, though. So this year, Canada Post, they delivered 1.5 million letters to Santa, which is kind of cool. They've been doing this since 1981. Canada Post has this official, I guess they call it the official Santa letter program, where they can kids can write to Santa at the North Pole, and it goes to, I don't know exactly who it goes to, but I guess they have a department that handles that. So I just think that's kind of neat. So that's a lot of kids definitely looking out. Now, in regards to Christmas as well, NerdWallet did a survey, and they asked average Canadians how much are they planning to spend this year on gifts, and the average Canadian said about $675. So be interesting to see. Now, did you guys spend more than $675? Did you come in above or below that average? Be kind of curious to know about that. So, whew. All right. A little bit about some market fears here. Just give me 1 second. So, the American market, well, the market in whole, it is acting, it's almost like one of them kids that is afraid. So, as soon as there's any kind of news whatsoever, it tends to knock the market down right now because there's a lot of extreme fear out there. Now, this week, when we're thinking about our Santa rally, and we won't know whether we have a Santa rally or not until after it's over because we have to look at those numbers. But the Santa rally should have just begun on Friday, and well, Friday didn't look that great. So it'll really be, I mean, we can still salvage a Santa rally if we have a good week this week, but we'll have to sort of see. Here's what tanked the market. And this is funny. I find this absolutely funny. News broke early this week that the American economy grew 3.2% between July and September. So you might be thinking, okay, yeah, that's good news then. Why did that hurt the market? Well, the reason that caused panic is people are thinking, uh-oh, if we grew that much, then the Fed is going to be like, oh, we can raise heights higher a bit longer. So that's kind of where that fear came from. And as you can see, the market did not have a good time ever since the Fed meeting. There has been, oh gosh, it's been very red. So we'll have to see how things come after the holidays. Hopefully people have calmed the, insert your favorite swear word there, down. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to see things at least a little bit better. Now, one of the things that also sort of ties into this is we did have our CPI for Canada come out. Now, before I touch that, let's take a look. Oh, Jill's talking about those letters. Duh, it goes to Santa. Yeah, I should have known that. Scott spent way less. The friggin' Oracle spent way less than the average. And Tim says, how do you feel about the markets in Europe? It seems like not a lot of opportunity there. It seems most of their big stocks are just chocolate and alcohol. Heavy taxes, not a lot of growth. Yeah, I would concur. There's always opportunity in any market. It doesn't matter whose it is. I don't know right now. I think that they're going to struggle a lot more than we are, only because they're going to feel some of the energy stuff this winter a lot more than the rest of the world. So there's a lot of, I mean, there's still an energy crisis going on over there, which is really interesting when you think about the fact that oil keeps coming down. But we'll have to see how that ends up going. So I'm looking forward to sort of seeing how things advance in the new year. I think that's going to be really interesting, because now that we've gotten the holidays behind us, we're also going to really start to see a lot of the effects of what's been going on with a lot of the rate hikes, because there's been rate hikes right across the world. We're talking, I think the only place I can think of off the top of my head that there really hasn't been a lot of hiking has been Ireland. But, it will be very interesting to see. All right, Canadian CPI. So the Canadian CPI number came out. Now our CPI came in at 6.8. Last month it was 6.9. So it got a little better, but we were actually expecting it to go down to 6.7. So it didn't meet expectations. Not great. Now when we go to core CPI, so that's just like your regular CPI, but you're not counting gas and food. Well, core CPI came in at 5.4. Last month it was 5.3. So it actually did rise a little bit. So that's interesting. Now we do have one more CPI that comes out before the next Bank of Canada meeting. So hopefully that one looks a little bit better. Otherwise, this is going to mean more rate hikes, because it's not great yet. They need to see these numbers, especially the core number. They're actually, and that's the thing, Bank of Canada is more interested in core CPI than regular CPI. So that's not a good sign. Let's hope the next one looks a little bit better. Now, a couple of things that came out as well within that CPI is mortgages. So the average mortgage is up 14.5%. We're talking year over year. So compared to this time last year. So we're up 14.5%. That's massive if you're, especially if your mortgage has come up for renewal. Or, if you're on a variable mortgage as well. Food, year over year, 100, it's up 11.4%. So that's a good amount for food as well. So that's kind of interesting. Now in October, we were 11% up. So food is still going up. So that is definitely a concern, because that's one of those items that you can't sort of say, okay, well, if food keeps getting more expensive, I'm just not going to buy it. That's really not an option. So we need to sort of keep our eyes on that. Okay. I have another story, and this is kind of an interesting one. And this is all about Elon Musk and Twitter. So you guys all know Elon Musk threw out his little poll and said, hey, do you guys want me to resign? I will abide by this poll. And they voted yes. So everybody wants Elon to resign. So he's now come out and he said, well, okay, I will abide by that, but it may take a while, because he needs to find somebody to replace him. Well, here's an interesting thing. Now take this with a grain of salt, but Mr. Beast, he tweeted to Elon that he might be interested in being the CEO of Twitter. And Elon kind of replied back to him like, I'll take that under consideration. So I don't think it would ever happen. I think Mr. Beast is way too busy to be the CEO of Twitter. So that to me is it's kind of really interesting. Now, here's the thing. Since Elon has bought Twitter, there's a new social media thing out there called Mastodon. And Mastodon has gained 2.2 million new users ever since Elon bought Twitter. Now, do any of you guys, let me ask this, do any of you guys use Mastodon at all? Have you even heard of Mastodon? So let me know in the comments about that. All right, and we've got a couple more comments here. So Vineet says, for food, it is broken down grocery versus restaurants. I guess used generally. Good question. I don't know how that stat was broken down. It didn't break it any further down for me where I got it. But that would be interesting. Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is a YouTuber. He's probably one of the most famous YouTubers, I think, follower-wise. He has a lot of followers. He does stuff like he'll make a video on, I'm going to put all these people in a circle. The last one to leave the circle gets $50,000. So that is the way that he kind of works. So he does a lot of philanthropy and giveaway type videos. They're very addictive. He actually did one video. If you've ever watched Squid Game, he did a Squid Game video where he recreated all of the games on Squid Game and ran people through it. Of course, though, people didn't actually die in his version, but it was rather cool. Now, I think there were some legal ramifications afterwards as well, because I think that the makers of Squid Game were like, you were kind of stealing too much of our idea. But that's who Mr. Beast is. If you start watching some of his videos, they're a little addictive because it's kind of cool. They very fast paced. He understands the YouTube algorithm probably better than most people because he really knows how to make entertaining videos. Sometimes it's really stupid ideas. So, it's kind of cool that way. But that's who Mr. Beast is. Jay says, Merry Christmas, Jay. Fantastic to see you. And Scott says he'll bring Mr. Beast in to help bring creators over to Twitter. That's an interesting thing because that's one of the things that Elon has said. He wants to bring a lot of the content creators off of other platforms over to Twitter. Now, that I find really interesting. Now, the other thing that's interesting as well, since you mentioned that, Scott, is that Twitter actually has said they're going to start removing links. If you tweet out a link to another social media platform, they're talking about starting to remove those. Now, what I use Twitter for is a lot of times I'll go on Twitter because I have a sizable following there, and I may tweet out, hey, I just did a video on this and drop a link. So though I may not be allowed to do those for much longer if that actually goes through. So we'll have to see. That'll be very, very interesting to see whether he will follow through on that. And there's even talk as well of banning people who don't stop posting social media content from other platforms onto Twitter. So we'll have to see how that all works out. Tim says, Mastodon is not great. It's very political and very leftist, and it seems like everyone is constantly reporting and banning each other. Oh, okay. That almost sounds like I used to play World of Warcraft. It almost sounds like World of Warcraft, where everybody would be like, I'm going to ban you. I'm going to report you. Holy cow. Yeah. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. I think social media should be as central as possible. You shouldn't be left or right leaning. You should just be sort of a tool. But it's hard to say when it comes to freedom of speech. You have to sort of figure out, where is the line? Is there a line? Obviously, there's certain things you probably don't want to do when it comes to social media, like, promoting hate speech, things like that. Obviously, that's goes without a doubt. So hopefully they can get this all sorted out. And I think Twitter's a good platform. I would really love to see Elon actually get somebody half decent in charge and then just leave it alone. Go away, Elon. You can just do your normal tweets as usual. Let somebody run it, turn it into a half decent company. But we'll have to see how that all turns out. You can do some unique things with food now, like cashback credit cards that give you more back at grocery stores. Or I use Scene Points as well as Safeway Fresh Snow to earn extra discounts. Yeah, absolutely. Ideally, credit cards are awesome as long as you're not getting into debt. So if you have a good no-fee credit card that has cash back on it, you should be using that for everything and then just pay it off. Make sure that you're not carrying anything over, so you're not paying any interest, but you're getting all that cash back. So that, to me, not a bad thing. And Brian says, I made it. Yay, Brian. Merry Christmas. It's great to see you. All right. So people are sort of filing in. And this is kind of weird for me because, 11 o'clock start is a very early start compared to what I normally do. All right, guys, we're coming towards the end of our news content, of our new news content. It's been a slow week. So you guys tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll just talk about whatever. So start hitting up them comments. While you're doing that, be sure to go down there and hit that like button. It pumps it blue and gets us out to other people. So apparently it helps in the algorithm as well, which is fantastic. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that for the moment. Last piece of news I have is all about Apple, YouTube, and the NFL. So the NFL is trying to sell a Sunday ticket, exclusive rights to the Sunday ticket, which basically allows for all these out-of-market games. And they're looking for $3.5 billion for this. They were in talks with Apple, but Apple's like, no, we're not going to do it. It's just too much. So now that Apple has backed out of this deal with the NFL, YouTube has actually come out and said, we're kind of interested in that. Let's have a talk. So now YouTube and the NFL is in conversation about this $3.5 billion for exclusive rights to Sunday football. So if you're a big football fan, you might be watching some of it on YouTube. Now you'll have to pay, of course. I don't think they're going to, buy it for $3.5 billion and then give it away for free, because that wouldn't make too many good business sense. And let's see here. Brian Scott says 2% cash back on groceries with Tangerine MasterCard. It really adds up. Yeah, oh no, absolutely. Vineet says we have a nice community. Hope it stays this way. Yeah, no, you guys are. This is one of the best things about this is that, you guys are just a fantastic group of people, and it makes it easy for me to come in here because I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of good people coming in and just talking. We're going to grow. And you know what? We may occasionally pick up the odd troll. It happens. But don't worry. If we get somebody who ever comes into the community and starts disrupting and causing chaos and becomes trollish, well, I have a block button. I've never blocked anybody. I don't want to block anybody. But if we ever get some really bad behavior, then, I would certainly consider it. But for now, so far, you guys have been fantastic. And it seems that my channel tends to attract people who are just really, really good people. And that's one of the things I love about you guys. So, keep that up. And Brian says, I would so buy the NFL on YouTube. So we now know Brian's a big football fan, folks. Jill says, I'm pretty much all cards nowadays have cash back. I don't think anyone uses Air Miles anymore. Yeah, I think Air Miles has kind of lost its way a little bit, which is interesting too, because when Air Miles makes money, some of that money goes to diversified royalty, so DIV, because they do hold the royalty for Air Miles. And Tim says, UFC has broadcast some of their shows exclusively on YouTube, and now they just signed a deal for a weekly show exclusively on Rumble. That Rumble. I've not checked out Rumble, to be very honest. But that's fine. I mean, I've been happy with YouTube. I find the community here on YouTube to be fantastic. It was a long haul to get monetized. Yes, I think they should probably shorten that process a little bit. But overall, though, I think there's a lot of transparency. I think they allow us to do a lot of different things. And now that they're bringing a lot of the functionality that you get in places like Twitch into YouTube. So, for example, you got the whole super chat thing now. You got the whole super thanks, which is kind of cool. I think the super thanks is kind of like, oh, I just want to buy somebody a coffee. Here you go. That type of thing. The channel memberships is great because it means that you don't have to rely on a third party, for example, like Patreon. Like I thought about going with Patreon, but YouTube has it built in here really cool. And so for my channel memberships, and you can tell the channel members right now because they're the ones who have the color in their name in the chat. So they get exclusive content, and I need to make another video for them pretty darn soon, but they also get to see all the trading I do. So I show them the dividends that come in and what I'm buying, any changes I make in my portfolio kind of on the fly, like same day, like dividends come in, I buy something. it goes out to the channel members right away. They also, one of them has requested that I do a dividend breakdown at the end of every month. So I'm going to start sending that out to the channel member folks as well. So if that is something that you're interested in, because it does support the channel, it's not very much, just click on the channel thing down below. Also, when you come in here, the first thing you might see, if you haven't already enabled it, is gifting. So if you see this thing that prompts you and says, hey, do you want to be able to receive a gift? Say yes, because that way there, if anybody's, ever feeling generous and is like, oh, I'm just going to gift a membership, bang, they can do it. You can receive it. You could be that person who gets one. So I think that is just really, really cool. So anyway, enough about the membership stuff. I just wanted to sort of put that out there. So what we're looking at coming up, I do have a video coming tomorrow. I still have to edit it. I've got it filmed. So the video tomorrow is, it started with Scott. So Scott brought up on his live stream. He does a live stream every morning. So if you guys are looking for a live stream to watch every morning, check out Create, Save, Invest. He just brought a little thing up about the new Purpose high yield ETFs. And I'm like, oh, Purpose high yield. And then one of our community members, Vic, has said, Candace, can you please make a video on that? And I'm like, okay, Vic, I'll do it. So that's tomorrow. So tomorrow I do have the Purpose high yield coming out. Thursday, I think Thursday is my predictions for 2023. And what I mean by predictions is not like, okay, well, I think Warren Buffett is gonna win a lottery in Louisiana, but he can't claim it because of an asteroid. It's gonna be nothing like that. What we're going to do is I'm going to basically break down sector. So I'm going to say, okay, here's what I think is going to happen in each sector going into 2023. So it'll be pretty cool, just this general idea. And then we can always, because this will be the first time I'm doing like this sector review, we can always at the end of next year, we can look back at my predictions and see how good or how bad they were. So that's going to be kind of cool. All right, Tim here says, I started investing in the spring of 2021. I'm up to $140 a month in dividends. So I really appreciate people like you and your content for being helpful, for helping me learn so much in a short time. Oh, fantastic, Tim. You're doing swell. That's pretty darn cool. I like that. Vineet says, how do we find Tim's channel? Tim, you mean Scott? Are we talking about Scott? Create, Save, Invest? Just Create, Save, Invest on YouTube. If you search for it, he's the only one. You'll see his shining little mug there as it shows up next to his profile picture. And that will do that. What I need to really do, and maybe I'll do this for the new year, I'm going to make a list of all of the different channels that pop in here that, I tell you guys to check out, so I can get a copy paste, so I can get these in and just start popping links out. That would be kind of cool. Because otherwise, I'm going to be going over here and being, trying to look it up myself. But just do a search on YouTube for Create, Save, Invest. You'll find Scott. He does a daily live stream. I try to show up from time to time as well. So, just check it out. Brian says, Scott makes me get up early. There we go. So Scott is Brian's alarm clock, amongst other things. So that's kind of good. And Scott says that'll be a good one. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now, Vineet says, I started in August and I'm close to $650 a month. Holy banana bread. That's good. And that's the thing. But keep in mind, when it comes to investing, sometimes the higher yields, you got to be a little bit careful. And I kind of hit on this in tomorrow's video. There is this thing called return of capital. So what return of capital is you've got, and this will happen sometimes in split core stocks. And I know this is in the video tomorrow anyway, but I'll just say it now for you guys, because you guys are here. It's Christmas. Why not? So with a lot of the split core stocks where they offer, not all of them, I want to be clear with that, but some of them, to meet the high dividends that they have, if they don't have enough money, what they do is they start returning some of the capital that you invested. So what that does is it means that there's this value called an average cost base, which is basically the average of where you bought into it. And that's number is important because when you sell, your capital gain is going to be the difference from that number and the next number. That will be the capital gain. So when they do a return of capital, it actually lowers that average cost base. So if you went and let's say you made $10 on, so you're thinking, okay, I made $10, so I'm going to have to pay my capital gains on 50% of that. So I'm $5. Well, if they all of a sudden lower it down and, it's like, oh, now it's $12, but I only gained $10, but it looks like 12 because that number has shrunk. So all of a sudden you're paying taxes instead of on $5, you're paying taxes on $6. So 50% of, of that 12 now. So it kind of moves it around. So if, of course, when you're investing in some of these higher ones like that, if you put those in registered accounts, so TFSA, RRSP, RDSP, RESP, they're protected from that. So you're not having that situation. But the other thing too is you just want to watch some of these stocks because like you take BTCY. So that's a purpose. That's the purpose Bitcoin yield. That stock, when it rolled out, when it first hit the market, it was oh gosh, I think it was like $8 and something cents a share, and now it's like $2 and something. But that's because Bitcoin completely, absolutely imploded. So that's going to be one of those things where if it's a stock that you're keeping forever in a registered account, you're probably not as concerned about it. But I'm always concerned when prices go down that much. Now, Purpose is a good company, and we'll touch a lot more on this in that video. So it's just one of those things to keep in mind. There's a lot of concerns when you're looking at. And the other concern too with a dividend yield is that if that's all you're getting from the company, so if you're getting a fantastic dividend yield of 10%, but that company price doesn't change, it's always pretty much flat, then that's all you're getting is 10%. Whereas if you're looking at a company like, we'll just use Canoo as an example. Canoo, is normally like, we'll just say 8% at the moment. It's higher than 8%. But with a company like Canoo, when the sectors that they are heavily invested in, which is oil, financials, and healthcare, when all three of those sectors are singing, Canoo's price is singing. So in those situations, so especially once we get back into a bull market, a company like Canoo, for example, you'll get that 8%, but you may also get another 8% in just the growth of that stock as well. So in that case there, you're actually getting a 16% growth. So you have to look at it. Now, this boils down to what you're using it for, right? If you're just using those dividends to reinvest, to try just to get more, just to build your platform. So in some situations, if you're not getting any growth at all, it's not always the best choice. But if you're in a situation where you're absolutely needing to live off of those dividends, well, that becomes a completely different story. And you'll find that and this is one of the reasons that younger investors tend to have a lot more growth stocks than older investors, because the older investor, they're looking at, okay, I want some dividend income to supplement CPP and, OAS when you get to that point. So in that case, you want to be stacking those dividends, because here's the beautiful thing. If you have, we'll use Vinita as an example. If you've got $650 a month coming in dividends, well, that money doesn't count as income, provided it's in a registered account. It doesn't count as income. So it can't, for example, claw back your OAS or affect any of the money that you're getting from the government monthly that way. So that's one of the fantastic things about dividends. Now, of course, if you have all those dividend stocks in your RRSP, once you hit 71, your RRSP then gets turned into what's called an RIF. And that money then, a percentage of it, depending on how, and you can work that out based on how old you are. So each year you have to take a certain percentage out of that former RRSP, so the RIF, that certain amount has to come out every year. But if you build your RRSP to basically create more income yearly, then what they're forcing you to take out, you could create it to be sustainable for a very long time, especially if you come from some good folk who, everybody lives to be 100 plus. Then you really don't want to be pulling stuff. You want it to be growing faster than what you're pulling out. And then that also allows you to leave something behind for your family when your days are finally done. All right, now let me take a look here. All right. So I set up TFSA years ago and never used it because I didn't know how. Then when I got into investing, I checked and had about 80,000 of TFSA room. Just trying to fill that now. I invest $1,000 a month. Okay, you'll get there, but keep in mind, you're also going to pick up January 1st. You're going to get an extra 6,500 added to that room because that's kind of awesome. But $1,000 a month, Tim, is a really good amount. I think a lot of people can't afford $1,000 a month to put into their investments. So that is really fantastic. I'm glad that you're doing that. Now, I don't know how old you are, Tim, but obviously the younger you are, the better this is going to be for you because, you'll really have an opportunity to let things build. And the other big thing too is as you're investing, if you have that $1,000 a month, keep in mind, you're also reinvesting the dividends that pop up and such like that. So that is not a bad thing at all. And Vineet said, awesome, Tim. And Brian said, can I get a high eligible div and a capital loss? I'm not entirely 100% sure what you're asking, but well, here, let me give you an example here. We'll use BTCY again. So one of the advantages to that price coming down as much as it has with Bitcoin, I mean, you're still getting, I think when it first came out, the yield was around 14%, 14.4%. So you're still getting about an 8% yield. But if you really had a lot of capital gains and, you didn't want to pay them, you could do something along the lines of selling BTCY and taking a big capital loss because there's a huge capital loss in that. So you probably wouldn't have to sell that much to make up for what you need to balance that against your capital gains. But here's this thing. If you're looking to tax loss harvest, I always say try to get it done before as soon as possible. Like I would almost say if you have any left still to do, most people have already done their tax loss harvesting. I would do it like on Tuesday when the market opens because you want to give it time to settle before the new year. And it normally can take 3 days to settle. So normally I say have it done by the 28th or 27th. I would even say the 27th. If there is any. Once, of course, we hit the new year, at that point, tax-wise, the only option you have is your RRSP. And an RRSP, what I always say is look at where your income is in regards to your tax bracket. If you are just a little bit over a tax bracket, you 100% want to be using your RRSP to knock your salary below that tax bracket. So that way you're paying less taxes. So you want to kind of be a little bit strategic with that. So that's kind of cool. All right. Vineet says, I think most funds are down right now. So some or most people are losing capital or principal. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are down right now. You haven't lost anything though until you sell. Keep that in mind. But there was times earlier in the year when we did have a fair amount of green still, like before the bear market really started to bear its teeth, and people who sold things then might have some pretty big capital gains that they might want to do some loss harvesting. Now, loss harvesting, here's this other thing too, is it's not always that you're losing, right? Because what I do if I'm doing a tax loss harvest, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to move out of stock A. But look, over here, I got stock B. It's a similar company, similar dividends. And it might actually have a better potential of rising back up faster. So I'll sell A, move it into B. Overall, in the end game, I'm fine. I've not really taken a loss at all. But on the books, I've taken a loss because of selling A. And I'm going to take that, and that's going to go. But keep in mind, when I bought into B, if I sell B because I bought B at the bottom of a bear market, once we start moving up into a bull market, I am going to have a bigger capital gains to deal with on that if I were to sell it. So there, it all works out that way. Excuse me. So you want to keep that all in mind. It's all about the math. That's what I always say. Let's see, I make $3,000 a month, 41 years old. I live very cheaply. I found a good place in BC for only $5.90 a month. Holy banana bread. That's awesome. I plan to invest over the next 20 years and then unleash the dividends in retirement. That sounds like a very good plan, Tim. I think I like it. And $5.90 a month, that's really, really good for British Columbia. So I am very impressed. Never let that go if you can help it, Tim. Let's see. I net $3,000 a month, 41 years old. Is that the same? That is the same. Holy banana bread. All right. So Brian says long-term plan, not this year. Good reminder, though. Yeah. There's always a lot that you guys can do. It's just one of these things that with finances, the big thing is, you know what? Look at the math. If something doesn't make sense, don't do it until you can make sense of it. So many people will sometimes I've seen it, like, especially with influencers. We'll talk. I'm gonna crap on YouTubers again. And I'm a YouTuber, but I'm gonna crap. I'll crap on me too. All of us. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how much you trust a YouTuber. If they tell you to jump off a bridge, that probably doesn't make sense. So you're not going to do it, hopefully. But it doesn't matter who they are. You should always still be doing your due diligence. I may come out here and say, oh my God, that Canoo is the best stock ever. I love Canoo, and I do. But that doesn't mean you should love Canoo. What that means is that you have a YouTuber that you may respect and they're into Canoo. That means you should check out Canoo. You should check out, go to their website. See what other people think about Canoo. If you have a financial advisor, talk to them and say, hey, what do you think of this Canoo EIT stock? So, there's a lot of different things that you should be doing, and that's all part of that due diligence. I always say, I'm here to give you a place to start your research. I'm here to explain what different things mean. I'm here just to give you guys an example of the way that I invest. And that the way I invest is right for me. It may not be right for you, but it gives you places to start, right? It gives you places to sort of say, okay, these are the stocks that Candace has. This is what's in Candace's portfolio. Do I agree with them? Do I want to research them? And you know what? And you could even, it's totally okay. Like I could be like, I love Canoo. And you could be like, oh my God, I hate that stock. I think that stock is overrated. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because, it's important to always develop your own opinion on a stock and never be afraid to express it. Like if you think I am full of crap on a stock, I encourage you to, to call me out and say, look, Candace, why are you so bullish on this stock? I think it's a crap stock, and the way I will approach it is the way I approach anything like that. I'm going to listen to your points, and I'm not going to sort of say, okay, well, I'm the YouTuber, I'm doing this, I do this all the time, so I have to be right, you got to be wrong. I will never do that. I will go back and I will look. Maybe you saw something I didn't see because I'm only human. I could miss something. And I will, sometimes I'll change my mind because when I'm given, I always base my opinion on the information that I have. And you want to provide me with some new information? Absolutely. I'm going to be grateful. Now, I've seen YouTubers out there that somebody disagrees with them and it's almost an instant block. And I'm like, what the heck? That's just crazy because you really want, I think, to grow and to become better at what you do is anytime I'm called out on something, especially even if I'm wrong or if I'm right, doesn't matter. If I'm called out on something, it gives me that opportunity to go in, take a look at it and see, see what is right, what is wrong, maybe there's a place in the middle that's actually a better place. And it's great. I got a few viewers that I make a single mistake, especially if I make a math mistake. I think one day, I think on one video, I made my decimal point was in one spot wrong and I missed it. But I got a couple of really good eagle eye viewers and they catch me every time. And they're like, and I'm grateful for that because it's like I now go back and I'm like, I look at different things. I'm like, okay, did I? Oh, wait a minute. That number looks too big. I'm going to redo the math. And just to make 100% sure. And I think that's fantastic. And it's one of the things I love about this community. And I also really, really like to say that this community, I think the best part about all of you guys is that I think we all encourage each other to grow and become better as investors. And when you guys get better, it makes me better because all of a sudden I got to start making better videos. I got to start leveling up. But I'm also, and it's one of the conundrums, right? Like I know that your guys' level is getting higher and higher, and you guys are becoming better and better and better. There's some of you guys out there that could have your own channel and be doing awesome. I know this. If you're one of those, talk to me. I'll tell you how to do it if you want. But here's the thing. I also am trying to keep cognizant of new people because I do have new people who are coming in and most of us here, we're now at a higher level. I don't want it to get to a point where for somebody brand new who comes in is like, oh my God, the worst thing that can happen is if you get somebody new who comes in and they're like, I need help with all the basics. And then you're like, okay, go watch all my old videos. I've seen YouTubers do that. I won't do that. So I will, when it comes to videos, I do want to keep bringing in every so often. I do the new investor one. I'm going to continue to do that because I want to try to bring everybody up and get everybody into that same level of, just plain awesomeness. All right. So let's see here. Why do you like HDIF? And I see. All right. You said, okay. I see that you redirected that question. I'll get back to that then. Yes, I'm heavy on HDIF. Oh, you're talking to Tim. All right. Candace is amazing. All right. I like that comment. Of course, that might just be ego. Sorry, I missed. What do you like about HDIF? Is 2% on Tangerine MasterCard better than President's Choice MasterCard? I don't know what President's Choice MasterCard gives you, but here's the thing. If you're paying no fees, so you want a no-fee credit card, and then it doesn't matter. If you have a no-free Tangerine card that gives you 2% cash back, if the President's Choice also gives you 2% cash back and it's no fee, I think President's Choice probably would be no fee. Then they would be equal, right? Because it's the math. Whichever one's going to give you the most, that is not a bad thing. Great diversity of industries. And this is all about that HDIF question. So great diversity of industries, invested in many countries, but heavy into the U.S. market. No fees, consistent distribution. Harvest is good at not cutting distributions. Yeah, Harvest. I love Harvest. Harvest is a really good company. I like Harvest. I like Hamilton as well. I do like Purpose. So there's a bunch of different ETF companies that I do like. And of course, Vanguard is really good. Vanguard is your, they're kind of almost like a blue chip ETF. They tend to keep things, you're not going to get your high dividends in there, but they do have, for example, an all equity ETF, so VEQT, which is great because that also gives you exposure to international markets. So you're not going to make a lot when it comes to dividends, but you got some growth. A lot of times you get more of a growth situation with some of the Vanguard ones. All right. And you get all that in one stock, so you keep adding to it, and compounding is better in a drip than if you bought all those ETFs separately. Yeah, absolutely. And what about diversification? Seems when the market is down, almost everything goes down anyway. Plus, you get better compounding the fewer stocks you have when just add to core positions. So math, once again. I will always be a support. So both are no fees. Evolve. Yeah, Evolve's another good company that makes quite a bit of ETFs. I also like some of the BMO ones as well. Put that out there too. So Paul Santeri, Merry Christmas, everyone. Hey, Paul, it's great to see you. Scott's here. Vanit Tangerine lets you choose 3 2% cashback categories. Not sure about PC. Yeah, I mean, you can go to their sites and figure them out. And we got Bleak in the house. Hey, Bleak. Like, what is this? Everybody comes in right at the end. It's like, holy banana bread. All right. So I think we've had a pretty good Christmas Day live stream. So now once this is done, I got to edit tomorrow's video. So remember to be back here for that. Also, make sure you guys hit that like button before you guys leave. Then see, Tim Smith, I have a Scotia Visa card. I get 2% back at grocery stores, drugstores, and gas stations. So that's fantastic. All right. One of you guys, I need you just to comment a nice holiday greeting for everybody as we go out, because I think that would be awesome. And we'll leave on that. So somebody get that in there for me. Here we go. Scott, you didn't. I was almost gonna say you let me down. You didn't let me down. Time for me to go. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks, Candace. And it is the same for me. It's a busy day. But guys, I've done 2 Christmas days in a row. I have a feeling I'll be back here next year on Christmas Day, and we'll do this all over again. This is fantastic. All right, everybody, have a Merry Christmas. Have a fantastic meal today, whatever it's going to be. And we will see you guys back. Well, we'll be back live again next week, as well as, of course, we'll be on the Dancer Show in the middle of this week. So always check that out. So everybody have a happy Christmas and a Merry New Year. I should go the other way, but we'll do it this way anyway. Have a Merry New Year. All right, everybody.